What's going on, you guys? TBR here, back yet again with another King of Fighters Allstar video. And in today's video, we will be shining the spotlight on SS Kula as we take a look at her in all things PVE. But before we get into it, if you enjoy daily King of Fighters Allstar content such as this, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. And let's go ahead and get into today's spotlight. If you guys missed yesterday's spotlight on SSK, link will be in the description. But starting out here, we're going to take a look at the typing and the leadership ability. Now, SS Kula is going to be a blue defensive type unit with a leadership skill that increases the attack of all fighters by 45%. Now, of course, as the leadership is concerned, there really isn't a whole lot to talk about there, so generally you're going to be using a different leader for her, but when it comes to the typing, very good for things such as high-level reviving Hell's Dungeon, but that is pretty much all there is to be said about that. However, she does have that awesome Nest tag as well. Now, if we take a look at the cores right off the bat, you are going to see that whopping 30% power charge rate increase. That's something you always love to see on these characters, and then you are going to see various buffs to things such as her crit, her attack, as well as her chill attack damage. So all of these things are very good. She also has an increase to her blast skill attack damage. So all of this stuff leads to a very good high damaging character, but we'll come back to that. Now, on the exclusive course, she is going to decrease the cooldowns of her active skills by 0.3 seconds upon landing a skill on a chilled target, as well as increasing chill damage by 120% when K is on the team, and of course this means K can also be a striker. Now, on Frosthair, she is going to cast that shield that we've talked about numerous times here on the channel. That is an amazing core to have. And then, of course, she has the exclusive core for the Special Signature Volume 3 characters. So in general, this character is going to have a lot of similarities to her SSK counterpart. However, while SSK does have issues outputting damage, as you guys will see in this video today, SS Kula does not share that same issue, and she does a much better job with this kit overall. Now, if we go ahead and move over to the skills, we'll start out with the S1, which is a derived skill, which means it's going to have a couple of skills underneath of it. But if you take a look here, it is going to give you hyper armor as well as boast an interrupt on the first part of the S1 for Lay Spin EX. A very nice skill to have. You love to see hyper armor on an interrupt. This is going to be in particular very good when you're in your awakening spam. And then on the first derived skill, she is going to increase penetration by 1500 for 7 seconds with a 70% chance to reset the cooldown for Lay Spin EX upon landing a skill. So really good stuff there as well. And then if we take a look at the next part, she is going to increase her attack by a whopping 50% of her defense for 7 seconds when using a skill, and this applies Cold Spell to all enemies for 8 seconds, meaning this is going to be a very good mobbing skill, and more than likely this paired with the S3 is going to be more than enough to go ahead and take down most mobs just because of her high damage output. And in general, this entire chain here is very, very good. So her overall derived skill on her S1 has a lot of really nice perks to it and is a big part of why she's able to output so much damage. Then if you take a look at the S2, she is going to increase the target's damage received by 30% for 7 seconds upon landing a skill, and this also freezes the enemy for 3 seconds upon landing a skill, guard included. So you see some CC here for the first time. This is also going to be very important for her. But then if we take a look at the S3, this basically means that she is going to deal Chill Explosion with a 50% chance to remove the target's super or hyper armor. So just like SSK, this character is also going to have Explosion on her specific dot. Not necessarily something that's that big a deal, as you can work around it. And then on Glacier Ridge EX, which is her core finisher, she deals chill damage equal to 33% of attack to the target every 1 second for 10 seconds upon landing a skill. Then if we go ahead and move over here to the cards, we are going to notice that she is going to have an effect on her newest finisher. Now, Harmony and Conflict is an extremely good 3PG. It is a very long finisher. It has a decent amount of multi-hits on it, and this is a really good little card in general, to be honest with you guys. I would really highly recommend that you pick up these 3PGs for these characters. But if you take a look here, she is going to deal additional chill damage equal to 200% of attack upon landing it. This is another really nice little added skill for these finishers. And this is yet another reason why I always tell you guys to make sure that you plan to be pulling for these finishers if you're planning on pulling for these characters, because they tend to be very, very good. Now, if we go ahead and take a look here, she is going to have an exclusive option card as well that's available on the general unified banner card pulls. But basically, as you can see, this is going to increase attack by 5% and be a cooldown reduction card, as well as increasing the chill damage for Kula by 50% for 5 seconds upon using an active skill. This is a really good option card. I wouldn't say it's make or break or must have, but I do think that it does add a lot to her overall damage. And then if we take a look at the stones, there's a little bit to talk about here. Now, as you guys will see, I do have a full set of the SS Volume 3 attack stones on here. However, there is a case to be made for the defensive stones as well, being the fact that she does have that whopping 50% conversion. So it's up to you guys on which direction you want to go in. I've heard good things about both. However, I have not seen anybody do any sort of damage comparisons or statistical comparisons for these two sets. Honestly, it's going to be a situation where kind of just do what you want to do and you'll be fine either way, but that's the reason I went that direction. So I would of course recommend the attack stones just because of past history with stones and these defensive type characters. Now, next up here, we're going to take a look at the skills, starting with the basic string. Now, the basic string is going to boast a very early off-the-ground capability, so you are going to be able to continue or start juggles very easily using this character, a theme that you will see whenever we get to her mobbing. Now, if you take a look at the S1, this is where things get a little bit strange because we do have a derived chain here, but basically, with the first part of this skill, you are going to have a pretty nice mid-range skill with off-the-ground capability. It isn't quite going to reach full screen, so I wouldn't be trying it from that sort of range, but at the same time, if you want to go ahead and add in the derived skill, you will be able to connect with whatever's in front of you. But again, because it is a little bit on the slow end and easy to telegraph, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Another thing to keep in mind here is, as of the time of making this video, these derived skills are going to be on the bugged side. Basically, you are not going to be able to use your derived skills whenever you are on semi-auto or auto, and if you are manually playing the game on semi-auto or auto, these characters are not going to apply their dots with their derived skills. It's a weird bug, but it is something that exists, so keep that in mind. It'll probably get patched at some point. But if we go ahead and move on to the S2 is also going to be an off the ground that is going to have good mid-range. However, it is definitely not a full screen skill, and it will miss characters if you are too far away. It isn't necessarily the shortest range skill you've ever seen, but it is something that is a bit deceptive. Now, it does have really good XY axis, so if you have characters kind of up above you or below you, it will catch those a lot of the times, but do keep in mind that you are going to need to be a little bit close to your opponent. Now, on to the S3. The S3, in my opinion, is her best skill, because this is going to group mobs like crazy. It is going to deal a ton of damage if the opponent has that chill on them because of that explosion, and then it is going to have a ton of multi-hits. So this is going to be a skill that is going to be amazing for things such as guild raid if you're trying to shred shield, something that she is surprisingly good at given the fact that she is a chill-based character. And then if we take a look at the finishers here, on her core finisher, this is going to be on the shorter end at about 5 seconds, but it has a ton of multi-hits, which is again really good for shield shred. And then of course the 3 PG finisher for her card is going to be excellent, as it is going to be around 10 seconds in length, just a little bit shy of that, and a full screen cinematic. So next up here, we're going to move on now to mobbing and bossing and see this character in action, because she is very impressive, and you guys are going to hear me talk a lot about this character in a positive light in this video, because there isn't really much of anything that I could say about her that is negative, but we'll come back to that. Now, when it comes to her mobbing, basically Kula is going to be an absolute monster. A lot of this has to do with the fact that she has a ton of multi-hits, but it also is going to be for the fact that she has a really nice damage ramp in her kit. Once you get that chill applied to a mob, you're basically going to be able to delete them off the face of the earth. And when it comes to her finishers, being the fact that they have a ton of multi-hits, that core finisher is going to deal that chill damage, etc., you're going to be able able to just move through these mobs without any sort of issue. I would even go as far as to say this is one of my favorite characters in the game for mobbing. She isn't necessarily the best in the game at mobbing, but she is going to be on the high end when it comes to her performance. And honestly, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that she's just a lot of fun to play in this type of mode in general. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at general bossing, it shouldn't come as any surprise. This character is an absolute powerhouse in bossing just because she does have that extra long finisher. She's going to have amazing damage output, a ton of skills, and overall she's just going to delete most general bosses. Now in PVAI, this is another place where this character is going to shine a ton. In particular, this character is going to be very good for defensive weeks of League because she is going to be kind of a hybrid type character, such as what we saw with SS Honoka, meaning that she is going to be able to do a ton of damage as a defensive type, which can be a little bit deceptive unless you know what you're looking for. But then she is also going to be a tier 1 championship character. Again, if you guys have not checked out the latest tier list for championship by Saint, I highly recommend that you guys do so, because both of these SS characters are tier 1. However, Kula is going to be an absolute monster here, in particular because she does have a fair amount of CC in her kit. But overall, and a wonderful addition to your team if you need help in defensive weeks of League or just another good absolute war character, Kula is going to treat you right. Now, when we get to Immortals, this character is arguably built for this type of mode, and there's a lot of reasons why, from the multi-hits, to the amount of skills in her kit, to the fact that she has that extra long awakening rotation, that really nice long 3PG finisher. Overall, this character cannot be understated when it comes to her Immortals performance. There really isn't a whole lot that is holding her back. She is also going to, of course, be a chill-based character, which is going to make her particularly useful against characters such as Immortal Typhoon. But another thing to keep in mind about her, and something that I have of course tested, is her performance against the Spider Robot, and I am happy to report that she is also going to be wonderful in that regard as well, which shouldn't come as any surprise. But when it comes to Immortals, really the only thing that you could probably levy against her is the fact that she is a blue defensive type, meaning that she isn't going to necessarily slot in with every team that you would like. But even then, there are plenty of options out there, being that she is a special signature fighter, as well as tagged with that Nest tag. So she has a lot of different characters that she can use at her disposal as leaders in order to get the most out of her. So I wouldn't necessarily say that that's anything that's that big of a deal. And overall, with this character, I do think that while her versatility can be questionable, being the fact that she is a chill-based unit, and we don't have a ton of chill-based game modes in the game currently, this is a character that is probably going to be best considered as a future farm character, meaning that you are probably going to want to pick this character up just for the promise of possible content in the future. But in general, when it comes to Immortals as it sits right now, if you need help with Immortal Typhoon, this is your girl, and in general, she can get you through most of these characters with ease. Now, let's talk about Guild Raid, because this is a mode that you probably would not assume that this character would be extremely good in, but I am happy to report, as I've shown you guys with that showcase that I did last week, against these Guild Raid bosses, this character is going to be able to do a ton of work, even if she is doing it solo with just a striker to apply the proper dot to the boss. So as you guys can see here, this is going to be Guild Raid hard against Omega Rugal, and this character is going to output a ton of damage. Again, it comes back around to the fact that she is going to have a ton of damage inherently in her kit, on top of the fact that she is also going to have a ton of multi-hits. This is something that she does not share in common with SSK, because as we talked about in yesterday's Spotlight with K, he lacks a lot of really good multi-hit skills. However, when it comes to Kula, she does not have that problem. She's going to be able to go into Guild Raid and tear the shield apart, mainly because, again, she has those multi-hits in her kit, but another big part of it has to do with the fact that she has a ton of damage. Another thing that helps her out here is the fact that she can bounce between her finishers fairly quickly, meaning she has a very quick power charge rate, so you can kind of exploit that and bounce between your finishers and stall the clock as much as you would like, and not really have much of any issue. And it is worth noting that from what I could tell, her best shield shred ability is her core finisher. That core finisher does a ton of multi-hits, as I've mentioned already, so if you take that in, you will notice that it is going to do a ton of damage to that shield. But as you guys can see here, easy one key with just a striker to apply the burn in Guild Raid Hard, and then this is going to be a clip from Guild Raid Expert against Omega Rugal, and we are using a Darkness Striker, which is our Lady Geese, and again, she is going to be able to easily one key this. So if Kay is going to be a character that isn't necessarily built for Guild Raid, the same can be said about Kula. However, she does have a much easier time in this mode, again, because of those multi-hits. She's going to be able to do a ton of damage to the shield and be able to continue to pile on damage on her Awakening spam with that shield down. Now, is she going to be ideal for this? Not necessarily. Of course, there are going to be better options just based on the fact that she does not have the proper dot needed for these modes, but if you just need a good shield shredder, this is a very good option, and I would highly recommend at least trying her out if you have her at a considerable Awakening level, because she'll probably surprise you. But that is going to be it for the spotlight for SS Kula. By all means, this is a character I would highly recommend pulling for. She is a top tier defensive type DPS and is the best overall chill character in the game. And then down the road, if we do get any type of mode added into the game that is going to call for chill, this is going to be a character that people are going to be begging for a rerun of. And overall with her, I am really happy with her performance. I think that this is a character that is going to get unfairly overlooked. A lot of it is going to have to do with the fact that I think most people were more excited for SSK, and he was a bit of a letdown for a lot of people. But Kula overachieved in a big way, and I do think that there is something to be said about the fact that you are probably going to want this character down the road more than likely. We do have some indication in the past that these types of dots are eventually going to get more support as far as content in the game, and I do think that it is going to be a situation where at some point she is going to be a character that a lot of people are going to kick themselves over if they missed out on her. But then again, she is, as of right now, not a must-have character, as there isn't necessarily a ton of content that is going to call for her. But that is pretty much going to be it, you guys. We have come to the end of the Spotlight series for these characters on this latest limited banner. Of course, Kula is, in my opinion, by far and away the better of the two, but let me know in the comments section down below what you guys think. I know I've seen some mixed reactions to these characters in the past, but let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I'll be back in tomorrow's video, but until then, if you enjoyed it and found it informative, like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you all tomorrow. Peace.
Continue.